You could probably guess what I'm about to ask you next. What is your favorite watch?
So I will give you a favorite brand. My favorite brand is Audemars Piguet.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
We are back with another episode of Starlight Spotlight. If you hold this button right up here, the one that says door, it'll automatically close the door.
And that's why I'm a watch guy, not a car guy.
Yeah. Well, we're in the back of the Rolls Royce Phantom. There's a lot of cool things about this car, but thank you for doing this interview. I want to ask you a whole bunch of questions about Luxury Bazaar, what it is, what you do, how it came to be so big today, and what happens next. So,
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
absolutely. Can we get started with maybe tell the people what's your name and what do you do?
My name is Roman Sharf. I'm the founder and CEO of LuxuryBazaar.com. We sell high-end watches, jewelry, and accessories.
How did you get into that? How does that get started?
I actually got started by accident. My previous life, I was working in IT, in banking, and I had a gentleman approach me that said, you know this internet stuff? This was when e-commerce was just coming about. You were a bit younger back then. I said, yes, okay. And at the time, it was really eBay. It wasn't really no true e-commerce just yet. He gave me a few watches on memo to throw on eBay, and the rest is history, as they say. With that said, technically, I'm not the real founder because when this idea came about, it was my wife that insisted that I do it. Because my first comment was, who the fuck's going to buy $10,000 watches on eBay? And my wife said, I think we should try it. I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad it worked out.
Has it always been as big as Luxury Bazaar is today, or has it been a slow struggle?
Much like my life and me starting out in a 400 square foot apartment in Brooklyn, New York, and working every job under the sun, it started from zero and it got to 150 million in sales throughout the 20 years we've been in the business. We've been pretty big in the last 10 years. We got our kick about 10 years ago when we just kind of went full blown and e-commerce kind of blew up. We had less competition and that allowed us to grow bigger.
So if there was one thing that kind of led to the explosion, do you think it was about positioning and timing as much, or was there something else that...
I think the biggest reason for the growth was the fact that I was never worried about filling my own pockets, but rather reinvesting into the business. Your business is your baby and you need to feed it. And so long as you treat it as such and you feed it and you reinvest back into your business, within reason, you still got to eat, you'll be successful.
Do you remember buying your first luxury watch? Like, because there's tiers to it, right? Eventually you cross the threshold into expensive watches.
So here's how it went down. Well, let me back up to when I got my own first fancy watch myself. This was before I was in the watch business. I had a buddy of mine that owned a pawn shop in Atlantic City, and he bought me an old Datejust for like $1,000. Now let me tell you something, you want to talk about horology versus flex. My first Rolex watch walked into the room like 5 minutes before me. Like, this is me. Hi guys, hello everyone, right? So that's when the flex part came in. That was my first real watch that cost me actually $1,100. I remember till this day. But as far as the scaling of the business, because I was lucky enough to have this gentleman hand me about $200,000 worth of watches to sell, I would say watches were anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000, with the most expensive watch being about $50,000. As the business started to progress and it started to grow on me, and when I left my corporate career to pursue this full time, mind you, I had a newborn son. I just bought a new house with my wife. My wife wasn't working at the time. My wife went back to corporate and I actually started doing the business full time. And I learned early on that in order to have big shit, or in order to sell big shit, you have to have big shit. Much like your business, you are who you are based on the inventory that you have. A lot of car clubs, rental companies out there, they'll have that one key piece or one key car, and the rest will be sort of like mediocre like everyone else. You guys do it big, and that's the goal I set from the very beginning, and that's by taking whatever I made and reinvesting into the business. Theoretically, I started with about $12,500. That was my first purchase, and I just continued growing and growing and growing, and rather than putting money in my pocket, I was putting the money back into my business, and I do this till this day. I grow my business consistently because if you're not growing, you die.
That first 25, was that on one watch? And do you remember what that one was?
The first watch I actually bought and then sold was an Audemars Piguet City of Sale in stainless steel, a watch that I bought for $9,000 and resold on eBay for $9,750. It is my first feedback on eBay. You can actually scroll back 20 years if you have that kind of time, and you can see that watch. Oddly enough, that's a watch that trades for about $40,000 today. So I wish I kind of could have kept it.
Yeah. Is that maybe the same for a lot of watches? There's a decade ago that no one knew was going to grow to the point it is today.
So listen, we had a bit of an unusual market, and I'm sure you can relate based on what's happened in the car market, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you can't even touch cars nowadays unless you either know somebody or blow someone, or I don't know how to get a card sticker nowadays, right? But at the same token, with watches, it's a healthy mix, right? Because watches go in and out of style. Trends change, be it size, be it particular brands. Obviously, your major brands that have been around for 150 years, they're going to be around for another 150 years and then some. But some watches fell off, a lot of them stayed. A Ferrari is a Ferrari, a Lamborghini is a Lamborghini. A Lamborghini was a Lamborghini 10 years ago, and it'll be a Lamborghini forever. So those cars are going to hold value, and they're going to consistently go up in value. Because if you're dealing with a successful company like Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet or Lamborghini or Ferrari, those guys aren't falling off. In the car world, there have been other car companies, or let's say call them supercars, that they were great, they came out, and then they kind of got lost somewhere, and they're no longer around. Same thing happens in the watch industry. But for the most part, you're going to see a steady climb for watches, much like you see with cars.
Has there ever been one watch that's been so elusive that was hard to acquire, or do you basically, you've touched everything at this point?
So at this point, I've touched pretty much anything. I've dealt with watches as low as $50 and as high as $5 million, right? Elusive is, I guess, a loose term. You can get anything in the industry, much like with cars, if you pay the price. But they become elusive when you can get a watch at a price point. And that's really when every single watch becomes elusive. So in a sense, everything is elusive if you want to buy it at the right price. If I got into your business today and I try to go up, match your garage and I wanted to spend $20 million, I wouldn't be able to do that at the right price. I could do it, but I would pay an arm and a leg, right? It would make sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Luxury Bazaar specializes in really hard to find, like stuff that you cannot find anywhere else.
So what separates you from the rest, right?
Quality,
plenty of companies out, especially in the Miami area, like you, right? But if you look at your stock, if you look at what you have and what you're able to deliver to a client, I try to achieve the same thing. You know, we came up with a hashtag, rare is what we do. So we go after things that no one else would have. We still have your regular lineup, right?
Right.
Everybody has a G-Wagon in their lineup when they're renting stuff out, but not everybody has that Aventador that's sitting out there, or some of the Ferraris you guys have. So it's sort of the same thing. You have to have a healthy mix, because not everybody's going to have the expenditure capability to go out and buy a $500,000 watch plus. So you have to have Rolex, you have to have IWC, and all those other things. So you do a regular lineup as the competition has, but at the same time, you make yourself stand out by buying stuff that's super rare. I've had watches that are one of a kind a multitude of times. I've had watches that I had one, another one was in a museum, and nobody else had it in the world.
Wow.
And it just takes balls, right? To sell big shit, you have to have big shit. That's where the risk comes in, really.
I'm sure you've got this question probably hundreds of times before. You could probably guess what I'm about to ask you next.
I'll listen.
What is your favorite watch?
So I will give you a favorite brand. My favorite brand is Audemars Piguet for two reasons. Number one, I like the fact that it's still a privately owned company all these years later, right? Some companies do own a piece of it, but it's mostly privately owned. It's been in business consistently. A lot of watches out there get reintroduced. A lot of brands that were opened in 17-something and they've been dead for 200 years, and all of a sudden somebody buys the name rights, and all of a sudden, the company's revived. Now, this company's been consistently running throughout. Everybody likes to find a niche, and I found a niche in limited edition offshores, kind of like the one I'm wearing right now,
What is this?
This is a watch that was made for a retailer in London, and the most special part is that the retailer's name is actually Marcus, and Marcus is the name of my son. So this is a Marcus limited edition. They made 100 of these, and early on, today Royal Oaks are kind of hot. Back then, it was the offshores, and I sort of I was able to utilize the internet to create the market on limited edition offshores, and I've seen some watches go from a price tag of $15,000 all the way out to $35,000 in a matter of a year and a half. And I was responsible because it's very easy to corner a market on something that is limited. If there are plenty of cars, some cars that you have, they're limited to a certain production number. As a car dealer, it's easy for you to corner that market if you were to buy most of them and continually trade them. So AP became my favorite brand based on, obviously, its history, craftsmanship, what they were about when they first started out. Most companies started out by making a simple pocket watch or a watch that only is time only or a date. Audemars Piguet came out of the gate making complicated movements for Tiffany & Co. for their pocket watches. So they came out of the gate making Rolls Royces rather than Hondas.
Awesome.
So that's why I love AP. And honestly, there isn't an AP I've met that I didn't like. So I'm going to give you a brand rather than a watch.
Is there an AP that has been so elusive that you're still chasing? Or have you basically touched every AP?
I have to honestly say that I've probably touched every Audemars Piguet in the catalog. There are APs that I've bought and sold that have gone through the roof like crazy. Watches that I would trade early as 6-7 years ago at $40,000 to $50,000 that are now upwards of $400,000 or $500,000 that I wish I would have kept. But there isn't really that one elusive AP. The one elusive AP that I've yet to get is one that's been custom made by the company for me. So AP, if you're listening, I still want one made for Roman Sharf exclusively. And I would design it because I've seen them all. I touch them all, and I would literally design my own.
That would be incredible to see. Probably not as limited as something like that. We have a car in the fleet that's an Aventador SV, and that car has a badge where it says there's only one of 650 in the world. So the fact that we're renting that out is kind of crazy, and that's the closest, I think, when it comes to limited number production cars that we have. And if you want to try it out, we do have it parked over in the back. We can show you that car a little later.
I would love that, but that's the thing. This is what separates you, right? Any other company out there, that's a car that's valuable on its own. It can just sit there and go up in value because it's so limited, but you guys allow your clients to drive something like that, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. And so, guys, if you ever wanted to try a car out for yourself, we also offer chauffeur services and a membership.
You need a chauffeur for something like this.
We offer that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So if you want to learn more about any of that, we're going to have all of that information down below. We're going to link to Roman Sharf's channel, Luxury Bazaar. That's where you need to go buy your next watch.
And this is where you need to go to put on that fancy watch and match it with a car.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this,
Hey,
man.
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right.